continue to go up. We'll get the latest graduation rates in January. I do know that the number of students that we graduated this past year was the highest that we had ever graduated. And we'll get our rates in January. I'm very confident that we'll continue to see increases in our graduation rates. And even while we were in the pandemic, you might look at that and think maybe those aren't reflective of what a normal, typical graduate would have to complete. We had 54,000 college credits earned by our high schoolers last year. That saved our families an estimated $8.7 million of college credit, and will help our students get off to the right start when they choose to continue their educational career in higher ed. We have more students who are on track to reading. We still have lots of work to do. But I'm incredibly proud of the effort and energy our teachers have put in to engaging with those students, that our leaders have put in to serving their communities well during this pandemic. The remote learning support centers, the services to English learners, students with disabilities, and the ongoing and daily support to our students, both while we've been in person and when we've had to be in remote. I'm anxious for this coming January, and looking forward to the Denver Public Schools opening up their classrooms again for students, because I know how critical it is, and because we've learned so much about how to safely support our students and our educators while we're grappling with the COVID-19 crisis. And so just really pleased to be able to share this last media update with all of you. Would be happy to take your questions.
Thanks. As a reminder, if you have a question, just let me know who you are, who you're with, and place it in the chat. At this point, we'd like to open it up for questions about Superintendent Cordova's time here and her move to Dallas. It looks like Ginny is first with CPR. Go ahead, Ginny.
Hi, Superintendent. Thank you. It seems to me when schools return to in-person learning, there will be a lot of pressure on teachers from anxious parents who feel their children are behind in learning. What message do you have for teachers and parents about this situation?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think, a lot of us have a lot of anxiety about all kinds of things as we think about January, both, the anxiety to get back in person and, some of the very valid and honest concerns that folks still have about how to do in-person learning well. So let me talk first a little bit about health and safety, and then I'll talk about academics and social emotional supports. We are very committed to welcoming our students back in January. And we really want to implore the entire Denver community to do their part to help us do this safely, expeditiously, and with as much academic integrity as possible. And so do everything you can, please, to follow the guidance, particularly during the holidays, about limiting your interactions and helping us continue to see the COVID numbers go down. We have seen dramatic decreases, which is good news, but it's going to take ongoing and continued vigilance to be able to do that. Once we are back in school in January, our focus is really going to be on both maintaining those protocols, ensuring that kids and adults all follow them. We'll all be using masks. We'll be following all of the social distancing requirements, doing a health check before we come in, frequent hand washing. But we have seen both here in Denver, in the metro area, in the nation, and in the world, very effective practices at keeping schools open if we follow those practices. We really want to make sure that we're all doing our part to make sure that that's happening. And then on the academics, we really understand it has been really hard on our students to not be in person, for our secondary students in particular, who have had very little, if any, in-person time. We're anxious to have them come back in. We're going to create as normal an environment for learning as we can. And we'll do a lot of work to ensure that we're really stressing what are the most important learnings for this year, how we can very quickly re-engage students who may have struggled in the remote environment, with lots of opportunities for kids to both interact inside school in safe, ways, as well as get deeply engaged in the learning that we know is so important for them. And it will also be really important for us to think about all of the new ways that we can think about the aspects of learning that are outside of the academics. And so just kudos to our teams who have come up with really fun ways for kids to stay engaged, both using technology and when we're in person, but still maintaining those healthy protocols.
Next is Tiney with the post. Go ahead, Tiney.
Hi, Susana. Congratulations and good luck on your move.
Thank you.
You've talked a little bit about what you're proud of and the big things that you think you accomplished. I'm curious, do you have any regrets?
I think there's always some rain along with sunshine. And so, definitely there are places where I think we didn't make progress as quickly as we wanted to. We've made dramatic gains, for example, in early literacy, and we are just beginning to see, for example, some really important gap closing, particularly for our African American and our Latinx students, our English learners, with their peers. But it's not nearly fast enough. That's a space where I think it's going to be really important for the district to continue to stay focused and push forward with urgency around that. I think we've done really important early steps in creating greater and more equitable practices for opportunity for all of our students. But like all big urban districts, our gaps are unacceptable. And I think it's going to be really important that we continue to focus. It's part of the reason why this year we've had Black excellence plans, why it's so important that we do ensure that our Black and African American students and our Latinx students have the supports that they need to truly fulfill their potential. And so I know we have work to do in those areas as well.
Melanie with Chalkbeat. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you, Susana. I wanted to ask about the return to school in-person school in January. Do you expect central office staff to still be filling in schools? And I know that you did that as well. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about your experience filling in.
Sure, yeah. We absolutely will have central office team members continue to support. Just as a reminder, we actually reassigned about 100 people to permanent long-term sub positions. So they will go back into their in-person positions as well. And we anticipate that we'll continue to need central office staff members to support both with classroom coverage, guest teaching or substitute teaching, as well as support for things like recess, playground duty, lunch duty, covering teachers' breaks, things like that. I spent time at Bryant-Webster Elementary School while our elementaries were still open and in person, which was really fun. I began my career as a school leader at Bryant-Webster, where I was an assistant principal. So it was sort of fun to do the same drive that I had done almost, over 20 years ago when I was an assistant principal, and then supported preschool and ECE classroom and a first grade classroom with breaks for the teachers so they could get, a lunch break, time to do some planning, take a walk around the block, get out of the classroom, take off their mask, for example. It was a lot of fun, frankly. I don't get a lot of uninterrupted kid time like that. And if you ever need just a wonderful reminder of how important in-person schooling is, hang out at a playground during a school. And it'll just remind you how wonderful it is to see kids being able to just interact like kids. And for those who are concerned that kids can't adapt to the new environment, let me assure you, all the way to 3 and 4-year-olds, we had no problems at all with kids keeping on their masks, with maintaining social distance, with adapting to the new environment. It was actually a lot of fun and nice break in my week.
Jennifer, we're at 9 News. Go ahead.
Hello, congratulations on your move. Best of luck in Texas. My question is about a follow-up to the enrollment numbers we learned about this week. So when I talked to the State Department of Ed, they were kind of guessing on where those kids were going. Homeschool, a lot of preschool and kindergarten kids, their families delaying a year. So this may be a better question for your predecessor, but if you have any thoughts on this, drawing back the kids that chose homeschool or something else like private school. Number one, that. Number two, just if we have a flood of all the kids that are delaying kindergarten a year, how to maybe prepare for that next year, because the Department of Ed seems to think that this will settle itself out in a year or two post-pandemic, but that seems to me like that could be really challenging to draw kids back or prepare for a flood of new kindergartners.
Sure, yeah. You know, we were really thoughtful this year about how to grapple with the decline in enrollment. Denver is really fortunate. Our numbers looked pretty similar to the statewide numbers. I know there were some districts in the metro area that saw significantly larger drops in enrollment than Denver did. We were just a little above 3%, and the majority, as you mentioned, at the earliest grades. And so, you know, we did some rearranging of our budget to allow our schools to keep staff in place with the expectation and the anticipation that next year would look a lot more like a normal year. We're really hopeful, and I'm encouraged by the news around where teachers land in the vaccination order, because I think that will definitely help us begin to see a more typical approach to what school enrollment might look like, and being able to have all of our teachers back and welcome students back, I think will really help us. We do anticipate that there may be some bubble grades, not as big a problem potentially in preschool, but as we think about kinder and first grade, certainly. We're going to have to be thoughtful about how we support potentially a bubble class where there might be more kids in a specific grade. And then we'll definitely, I would encourage our successor, and particularly our permanent superintendent, whoever is selected, to think innovatively about how we can support kids. We're doing a lot more work with competency-based learning, and particularly for older students. That has been a very successful strategy, and thinking how we might be able to do that for younger children as well, I think would be a good move.
Tiney with the post, go ahead.
Susana, I'm curious, your new position is Deputy Superintendent of Leading and Learning. What are you most excited about to be doing in Dallas?
Yeah, so, you know, it's really a familiar role to me, and it's a role that I've served with a slightly different title here in Denver. I'll be working with the schools team, with the academic central support team, and with their innovation team doing a strategic development of new schools and strategies. I think I'm really excited to be getting, you know, a little bit closer to school leaders and to the work that goes on with supporting teachers. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really excited about getting to know the Dallas community. And so looking forward to just building out a new network of friends and colleagues, ardent supporters of education in the Dallas area.
Okay, if there are any last minute questions, just go ahead and unmute. Otherwise, we can wrap.
Hi,
Jenny,
Susan.
go ahead, Jenny.
Yes, I just wondered, looking forward for DPS, what do you think are the areas that perhaps need to be focused on a little bit more, given, you know, right now it seems like various camps are forming that have their own vision for what the district needs, and maybe just talk a little bit about what you hope doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And
Sure, yeah, thank you. And I definitely appreciate the framing of that question. You know, what I would say is I don't know that there's a more important job than superintendent of the Denver Public Schools in the city and county of Denver. And I don't know that there's more important work than preparing our students to be ready for the next grade and ultimately to graduate ready for career or college. And so I do think it's really critically important. I also think it's really important for the Denver community to move past labels. We've done such great work and we have so much to do. And frankly, the issues in education, and Jenny, I think you know this so well from the in-depth reporting that you've done, both in Denver and in school districts around the state, they defy sound bites. They are not easy problems. It is really easy to smear a candidate or to say that something is good or is bad. And frankly, in education, I think frequently we are faced with, particularly at the current moment, a series of really challenging choices, none of which always feel like they serve in the best way. And people are going to have to, I believe, move past that to get focused on how do we build the strongest team, focused on supporting the outcomes that we all want for our kids, which are both test scores as well as the social emotional development of kids. As a parent of a recent DPS graduate, I think it is a fallacy and a false notion that people either care about test scores or they care about their kids' well-being. I think if you talked to any parent, they would say they want their kids to be able to perform at the very highest level that they are capable of, and to be happy, well-adjusted children. They don't have to come at the expense of one or the other. And so I think it's going to be really important. I think it's going to be, frankly, really challenging for this community to do that. It's a lot easier to throw labels around than it is to do the hard work of working together to improve education. It is worth the effort. And so my encouragement would be, like, roll up your sleeves, jump in, look past labels, and find it within yourself to truly listen to what people are saying and find the common ground. I think that's the only way we'll move forward.
Erica with the Colorado Sun, go ahead.
Hi, Susana. Congratulations on your move. I think you're going to be so missed here in Denver.
Thank you.
I had to jump on a few minutes late, so I hope I'm not being redundant here. But this year has, of course, really weighed on teachers and their mental health, and there are a lot of fears of teacher burnout. I'm wondering, what is your departing message to teachers, and what kind of support do you think DPS administration needs to offer them when they return in January?
Sure, no, and I'm not sure anybody did ask that, so it was perfect timing. So my first message is so easy and so completely heartfelt. It is thank you, thank you, thank you. As a parent who was the recipient of amazing educators working with my own children, I know firsthand what a difference a great teacher makes in a child's life. And so my first message would be thank you, thank you, thank you. My second message would be to please take care of yourselves. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon on a normal, in a normal year, and it is especially so during these really challenging times when we are back in person. What I would say is work closely with your school leadership teams. School leaders, please work closely with all of the central support teams to stay focused on providing our students with the most normal educational experience we possibly can. And to do that, we all need to take care of ourselves as well. And so I think it's just really essential that we treat each other with kindness, with respect, and with focus on the most important work, which is accelerating learning for our kids who have already missed out on so much.
Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks all.